3 moons have passed since you became the Bridge Walker, and your work in the mortal world has begun to bear fruit in ways both subtle and profound. You find yourself standing once again at the edge of the Whispering Woods, but this time you are not alone. Beside you walks a small group of mortals, those whose hearts have proven most receptive to wonder, whose dreams have carried them partway across the bridge you've been building between worlds. There is Elena, a children's librarian whose storytelling sessions have begun to literally illuminate the room with soft golden light that only the youngest listeners can see clearly. Marcus, a street artist whose murals have started moving when viewed from the corner of one's eye, telling stories that change based on the observer's deepest needs. Sarah, a composer whose melodies now carry harmonics that exist only in the spaces between notes, songs that heal hearts and kindle hope in the darkest places. These three, and others like them scattered across your world, have become unwitting allies in your mission. Mortals whose creativity burns so brightly that it has begun to thin the veil between realms. They don't fully understand what's happening to them yet, but their art has become a conduit for magic to seep back into the world like water finding cracks in a dam. Is this real? Elena whispers, her voice filled with the same awe you felt on your first journey here. Her eyes are wide as she takes in the Aurora Brook with its fish made of living starlight, the tree shepherds swaying in harmonies older than civilization. Reality is more complex than we taught ourselves to believe, you answer, watching as Marcus kneels beside the stream of liquid light, his artist's eye cataloging colors that have no names in any mortal tongue. What you're seeing now was always there, waiting. We simply forgot how to look. Sarah has wandered toward one of the melody crystals that grow in natural formations throughout the forest. As she approaches, the crystal begins to sing, not the random chimes you heard on your first visit, but a structured composition that responds to her presence, harmonizing with the rhythm of her heartbeat, the cadence of her breathing. It knows me, she says in wonder, reaching out to touch the crystal's surface. Where her fingers make contact, new facets grow, adding complexity to the melody. It's composing with me, not just for me. This is how it begins, you realize. Not with grand pronouncements or dramatic revelations, but with small moments of recognition, instances where the impossible reveals itself to be merely improbable. Each person who truly sees, becomes another strand in the growing bridge between worlds. Alindra emerges from between the silver bark trees, but their appearance has changed since your last meeting. The elf's robes, once woven from aurora light, now show threads of earthly materials, cotton and silk and wool, as if the connection between realms is strengthening their ability to manifest in ways the mortal mind can more easily accept. Welcome back, Bridgewalker, Alindra says, inclining their head gracefully. And welcome, dreamers of the waking world. Luminara has been brightening since your stories began to take root in mortal soil. It's true. The forest around you seems more vivid than before, the colors deeper, the magic more substantial. The tree shepherd's leaves rustle with greater volume, their ancient voices carrying farther. The starlight fish in the Aurora Brook swim with more purpose, their trails of light lasting longer before fading. The realm feeds on belief, you explain to your companions as you begin the familiar walk toward Silvermere. Every person who hears our stories and opens their heart to possibility makes this place more real, more lasting. As you climb toward the Crystal City, Elena notices things that had escaped your attention on previous visits. The path is changing, she observes, pointing to the moonstone walkway beneath your feet. There are new patterns in the stone, symbols I've never seen before. She's right. Spiraling between the existing elvish runes are new markings, symbols that look almost like children's drawings, simple but profound representations of wonder. A stick figure child reaching toward stars, a house with smoke curling from the chimney in impossible spirals, a tree whose roots and branches form the shape of an open book. The dreams of your world's children, Alindra explains with a smile. Their belief is the purest, most powerful magic of all. When they hear your stories, when they dream of dragons and elves, their imagination leaves marks here just as real as any physical footprint. Marcus has been quiet during the climb, but now he speaks up. In my neighborhood, kids have been drawing dragons on walls, in chalk on sidewalks. I thought it was just because dragon movies are popular again, but... He trails off, staring at a section of crystal cliff face where new formations have grown, delicate spirals and wings that clearly echo the artwork of earthbound children. But they're not copying movies, you finish for him. They're remembering. Their souls recognize these beings even if their minds have been taught to dismiss them as fantasy. The city of Silvermere has transformed as dramatically as the forest. Where once it seemed ethereal and otherworldly, now it shows signs of mortal influence. Some buildings have developed more conventional doorways alongside their reality-bending entrances. Gardens display flowers that exist in both realms, roses that glow with inner light, sunflowers that track not just the sun but the seven moons as well. In the central plaza, the fountain of suspended light droplets has gained companions, smaller fountains that spray real water alongside liquid starlight, creating rainbows that arch between the realms. Elven children play alongside beings you've never seen before, half-human, half-elf hybrids, whose very existence proves that the barriers between worlds are weakening. How is this possible? Sarah asks, watching a group of these mixed heritage children play a game that involves painting music in the air with their hands. Are these children from our world who somehow crossed over? In a way, Alindra replies. When mortal parents tell bedtime stories with enough love and belief, when they truly invest themselves in tales of magic and wonder, sometimes their dreams create echoes. Children born of story and starlight, existing primarily here, but carrying traces of your world's reality. You understand immediately. These are the offspring of the bridge you've been building, beings who embody the connection between realms, who prove that magic and mundane reality can not only coexist, but can create something entirely new together. Elena kneels down to interact with one of these storyborn children, a little girl with hair that shifts color like autumn leaves and eyes that hold depths of ancient wisdom despite her apparent youth. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "I'm called Wonder," the child replies in a voice like silver bells. "My parents are every mother and father who ever told a bedtime story about brave princesses and helpful dragons. Would you like to hear about my adventures?" As Wonder begins to speak, her words take visible form in the air around her. Images of castles built from cloud stuff, of dragons who breathe butterflies instead of fire, of forests where every tree bears fruit that tastes like a different happy memory. The story is simple, the kind of tale any child might invent, but here it has weight and substance, creating temporary realities that exist for the duration of the telling. Marcus pulls out a sketchbook he's been carrying and begins to draw, but his pencil marks appear not just on paper but in the air itself, three-dimensional artwork that responds to Wonder's story. Where she describes a butterfly dragon, his drawing gives it form and color. Where she mentions a singing flower, his artistic interpretation makes it bloom into existence. This is how it works, you realize aloud. Collaboration between realms. Your world's creativity giving form to our world's magic, our magic giving life to your world's dreams. The demonstration draws the attention of other city dwellers. Elves gather to watch, but so do creatures you haven't seen before. Beings that seem to be amalgamations of earthly animals and magical essences. A cat whose fur is made of shadow and starlight. A dog whose bark creates tiny fireworks. A horse whose mane flows like water but whose hooves ring like silver bells on crystal. Familiar spirits, Elindra explains, noting your curiosity. When mortals in your world form deep bonds with animals, when they love their pets so completely that they begin to attribute magical qualities to them, echoes of those bonds appear here. These creatures are the idealized versions of every beloved pet, carrying the pure love their mortal companions felt for them. Sarah has wandered toward a group of elven musicians who are experimenting with instruments that exist in both realms. A violin with strings of light produces sounds that register on conventional hearing, while simultaneously creating visual patterns in the air. A drum made from crystallized thunder creates rhythm that can be felt in the bones, while generating ripples of color that spread outward like aurora. "Could I?" Sarah hesitates, then continues more confidently. "Could I play with you?" The elven musicians exchange glances, then nod welcomingly. One offers Sarah a flute that appears to be carved from solidified moonlight. When she brings it to her lips and plays a simple melody from her own world, a lullaby her grandmother used to sing, the instrument transforms the familiar tune into something transcendent. The melody rises into the crystal sky, but instead of fading, it begins to attract responses. Other musicians throughout the city take up the tune, each adding their own variation, their own cultural interpretation. Soon the entire city resonates with music that belongs to no single realm, but to the growing space between worlds. As the impromptu concert continues, you notice changes occurring throughout Silvermere. Buildings develop new architectural elements that blend elvish crystal work with earthly materials. Gardens sprout plants that exist in both realms. Even the elves themselves seem subtly different, more substantial, more accessible to mortal perception. The bridge is strengthening, Alindra confirms, their melodious voice carrying harmonics that echo Sarah's lullaby. Each connection made, each moment of shared wonder, makes both realms more real to each other. Elena has been conversing with Wonder and the other story-born children, sharing tales from earthly libraries and schools. But as she speaks, her stories begin to manifest just as the children's do. Her description of a library where books read themselves to visitors creates a shimmering building in the plaza's center. Her tale of a garden where flowers teach children to read causes alphabetical blossoms to sprout from the crystal ground. "This is amazing," she breathes, watching her words take form. "In my world, I can only tell stories. Here, stories tell themselves. But you're changing your world too," you point out. "Every child who hears your stories and believes, even for a moment, that magic might be real, they're creating cracks in the wall between realms. Their belief makes magic possible in places where it was forgotten." Marcus has been creating a mural on one of the crystal walls, his earthly spray paint somehow adhering to the magical surface while taking on properties of liquid light. The image he's creating shows both realms, a city street where mundane reality blends seamlessly with magical elements. Children playing in parks where swings are suspended from rainbow light. Adults walking to work while dragons soar overhead, as normal and accepted as pigeons. "Is this what you're trying to achieve?" he asks, stepping back to admire his work. "Complete integration?" You consider the question carefully. "Not complete," you finally answer. "Magic loses its wonder if it becomes mundane. But I want people to remember that extraordinary things are possible, that the world contains more beauty and mystery than we've taught ourselves to see." As if summoned by your words, a familiar presence makes itself known. Pirion the Starborn descends from the crystal peaks, but his appearance has changed dramatically since your last meeting. The great dragon's star-filled scales now show glimpses of earthly constellations alongside alien patterns. His eyes hold depths that reflect both cosmic vastness and human emotion. "Bridgewalker," Pyrion's voice carries new harmonics, cosmic thunder mixed with earthly rain. "The great work progresses more swiftly than we dared hope. But with swift change comes new challenges." The dragon settles in the plaza, his massive form somehow managing not to disturb the delicate crystal structures. The other inhabitants of the city gather around him with respectful attention, while your mortal companions stare in awe at their first sight of a true dragon. "In your world," Pirion continues, "there are those who sense the returning magic and fear it. They work to strengthen the barriers, to prevent the bridge from reaching completion. They would keep the realms separate, even if it means the death of wonder itself." You feel a chill that has nothing to do with temperature. You've sensed this opposition in your own world. A growing movement of people who dismiss imagination as dangerous, who want to eliminate fantasy from children's education, who see magic as a threat to rational thinking. "Who are they?" Elena asks, her librarian's instincts recognizing a threat to knowledge and creativity. "They call themselves the Order of Absolute Reality," Pirion explains, his star-filled eyes reflecting sadness. "They believe that fantasy and imagination weaken the human mind, make people less capable of dealing with practical concerns. They've begun targeting storytellers, artists, musicians, anyone whose work serves as a conduit for magic." Sarah steps forward, her hand still holding the moonlight flute. "But that's exactly backward. Art and music and stories, they help people cope with reality by showing them possibilities beyond their immediate circumstances." "You understand this," the dragon nods approvingly, "but they do not. They see only danger in what they cannot control or quantify, and their influence grows as people become frightened by changes they don't understand." Marcus frowns, thinking of friends whose artwork has been criticized as too fantastical or impractical. "So what do we do? Stop creating? Let them win?" "Never," you say firmly. "We do the opposite. We create more, share more, inspire more. For every person they convince to fear magic, we help two people remember how to see wonder." Alindra steps forward, their expression grave but determined. "There is another way to strengthen the bridge, but it requires great courage from all involved. The ritual of true seeing, a ceremony that would permanently open selected individuals to perceive both realms simultaneously." "Permanently?" Elena asks. "What would that mean?" "You would see magic wherever it exists," the elf explains, "in both realms all the time. Every act of creativity, every moment of genuine love, every instance of hope overcoming despair, you would see the magical energy these generate. But you would also see the places where magic is dying, the areas where wonder has been systematically eliminated." You understand the implications immediately. It would be overwhelming at first, seeing so much that others can't see, knowing truths that others refuse to accept. But it would also make you more powerful as bridges, Pierian adds. Your art, your stories, your music would carry undeniable traces of real magic. Those who experience your work would find it impossible to dismiss as mere fantasy. The three mortals exchange glances, weighing the offer. You can see the desire in their eyes, the artist's hunger for truth, the storyteller's need for authenticity, the musician's quest for perfect harmony. But you can also see their fear of what such sight might cost them. There's something else, you tell them gently. If you accept this transformation, you'll never be able to go back to seeing the world as purely mundane. You'll carry responsibility for helping others bridge the gap between realms. It will change not just how you see, but who you are. Elena is the first to speak. I've spent my whole life helping children discover the magic in books, in stories, in their own imaginations. If I could actually show them that magic is real, and I've always painted what I felt rather than what I saw, Marcus adds, if I could paint what actually exists in the spaces between the visible. Sarah nods slowly. Music has always been about touching something beyond the everyday world. If I could help others hear the music that exists in everything, one by one they step forward, accepting the transformation that will make them true bridges between worlds. The ceremony itself is conducted in the crystal chamber at the heart of Mount Luminar, with all 7 dragons participating alongside representatives from every magical species. As the ritual begins, the great crystal of making pulses with renewed life, its facets showing not just the 3 possible futures you witnessed before, but thousands of potential outcomes branching and interweaving like the roots of an enormous tree. Each pulse of light represents a choice, a moment where someone in either realm decides to embrace or reject wonder. The transformation process is unlike anything you experienced when you became the Bridgewalker. Where your change was gradual, a gentle shifting of perception and understanding, this ritual works differently for each participant based on their unique gifts and calling. Elena's transformation manifests as an expansion of her voice. When she speaks now, her words carry visible weight. Stories don't just entertain, they reshape reality around her listeners. Children in her story circles will find themselves briefly transported to the places she describes, able to touch dragon scales and smell magical flowers before returning to the mundane world with the certainty that what they experienced was real. Marcus undergoes a change that affects his artistic vision. His eyes now perceive the magical essence that underlies all things, the threads of possibility that connect every moment to every other, the color spectrums that exist beyond normal sight, the way emotions and thoughts create their own kind of visual symphony. His art will become a window between worlds, showing viewers glimpses of the magical reality that surrounds them always. Sarah's transformation is perhaps the most dramatic. Her hearing expands to encompass not just sound, but the fundamental vibrations that create reality itself. She can hear the music that stars sing as they burn, the harmonies created by growing plants, the percussion of rainfall that follows rhythms older than time. Her compositions will now serve as bridges, each note a pathway that listeners can follow to touch the edges of other realms. As the ceremony concludes, you feel the bridge between worlds strengthen dramatically. But you also sense new resistance. Somewhere in your world, the Order of Absolute Reality has noticed the surge in magical energy and is mobilizing to counter it. The opposition makes itself known sooner than expected. As you and your transformed companions prepare to return to the mortal world, Crystallios appears with urgent news. His transparent form flickers with alarm, showing visions within his crystal structure of events unfolding in your realm. They move quickly, the dragon reports. The Order has begun what they call the Clarity Campaign, a systematic effort to remove fantasy from human culture. They've convinced governments that imagination is a form of mental illness, that art and music that doesn't serve practical purposes wastes resources that could be better used elsewhere. Through Crystallios's crystal form, you see disturbing images, libraries burning fantasy novels, schools eliminating art and music programs, museums removing paintings that show impossible scenes. Children's faces grow gray and listless as the sources of wonder are systematically removed from their lives. They're trying to starve Luminera, you realize with growing horror. If they eliminate all sources of magical thinking from your world, the bridge will collapse and this realm will fade completely. Verdania, the Lifebringer dragon, coils around the group protectively. Her scales rustle with the sound of every leaf that has ever grown, every flower that has ever bloomed. There is hope, she says, her voice carrying the whisper of spring winds. Each person transformed becomes a seed of renewal. You cannot be everywhere at once, but you can plant gardens of wonder that will grow even in hostile soil. She breathes upon each of your companions, and where her breath touches them, they begin to glow with soft green light. Not visible to ordinary sight, but unmistakable to anyone with magical perception. Now you carry the essence of growing things. Wherever you go, whatever you create, new wonder will take root and spread. Tempestus, the stormcaller, adds her own blessing. Lightning plays across her silver blue scales as she speaks. And where growth is threatened, you will have the power to call storms, not of wind and rain, but of inspiration and revelation. When the Order tries to eliminate wonder, you will be able to create experiences so beautiful, so undeniably magical, that those who witness them will never again be able to accept a world without mystery. Luminos, the light-bearer, steps forward last. His radiance, which normally would be blinding, somehow becomes gentle and warm around your group. Most importantly, you carry light that cannot be extinguished. Even in the darkest places, even when all seems lost, you will be beacons that others can follow back to wonder. As you prepare to depart Luminara, Elindra offers one final piece of guidance. Remember that the Order's greatest weapon is fear. Fear of the unknown, fear of change, fear of anything that cannot be completely controlled. But their greatest weakness is also fear. They are terrified of their own imagination, of the possibility that the world might be more mysterious and beautiful than they can accept. The return journey to your world is different this time. Instead of the gradual transition you experienced before, the four of you travel together through a corridor of crystallized starlight that Pyrian creates with his breath. You emerge not in your individual homes, but in a place that exists simultaneously in both realms, a nexus point where the bridge between worlds is strongest. You find yourselves in what appears to be an abandoned theater, its Art Deco architecture showing signs of decades of neglect. But your enhanced vision reveals its true nature. This is a sanctuary where the boundary between realms is so thin that magic bleeds through naturally. The faded murals on the walls still move when viewed from the corner of the eye. The old pipe organ in the orchestra pit plays melodies that exist only in the spaces between notes. The stage itself is a portal where stories told here can literally come to life. This will be our headquarters, you announce, understanding instinctively that this place has been waiting for you. A sanctuary where people can come to remember how to see wonder, a place where we can train others to become bridges between worlds. Elena runs her hands along the theater seats, and where she touches them, the worn fabric repairs itself, taking on colors that shift and change like aurora. We could hold story sessions here. Children could come and experience tales that are more than just words. Marcus examines the murals, seeing past their faded surfaces to the magical essence beneath. And art workshops. People could learn to paint what they feel rather than just what they see. Every picture created here would carry a piece of Luminara back into the world. Sarah approaches the old organ, her transformed hearing picking up the ghostly melodies that still echo through its pipes. Music lessons, but not ordinary ones. I could teach people to hear the symphony that exists in everything, the rhythm of heartbeats, the harmony of breathing, the percussion of footsteps on different surfaces. Over the following weeks, you work together to restore the theater, but this restoration is unlike any mundane renovation. Every repair carries magical intention. The lighting system is rebuilt using crystals that store and amplify starlight. The sound system is enhanced with melody crystals that can reproduce not just earthly music, but the songs of other realms. The stage is equipped with dream-weaving apparatus that allows stories to manifest as temporary but tangible realities. Word spreads through networks you didn't know existed. Artists who have always felt that their work touched something beyond the ordinary, writers whose stories seemed to write themselves, musicians who sometimes heard melodies that no earthly instrument had ever played. They come seeking answers, drawn by rumors of a place where imagination becomes real. But your activities don't go unnoticed by the Order of Absolute Reality. They send investigators, stern-faced individuals who measure everything and find wonder in nothing. They attend your story sessions with instruments designed to detect reality distortions. They analyze Marcus's paintings for evidence of hallucinogenic properties. They record Sarah's music and subject it to acoustic analysis, searching for subliminal manipulation techniques. The confrontation comes on a night when the theater is filled to capacity. Families have brought children to hear Elena tell the story of the Crystal Realm. Artists fill sketchpads with images that appear first in their imagination, and then, subtly, in the air around them. Musicians experiment with instruments that respond to emotional states as well as physical manipulation. The order arrives with official documents, cease and desist orders, health department violations, fire code infractions. They've brought police officers and city officials, cameras, and recording equipment. Their leader, a woman whose gray suit seems to absorb light rather than reflect it, steps onto the stage and begins to speak. "Citizens," she announces, her voice cutting through the magic like a blade, "you have been deceived. What you think you're experiencing here is nothing more than sophisticated stage effects and psychological manipulation. These people are exploiting your desire for meaning and wonder, filling your heads with dangerous fantasies that will make you less capable of dealing with real-world challenges." But as she speaks, something unexpected happens. The children in the audience, those whose minds are still open to possibility, begin to see through her words to the fear beneath. They see that she's not angry about deception, she's terrified of truth. They see that her gray suit isn't just clothing, but armor, protection against any possibility that the world might be more beautiful than she can bear to believe. Wonder, the story-born child who somehow exists in both realms simultaneously, stands up from her seat in the front row. Her voice, clear and unafraid, cuts through the woman's speech. "You're scared," Wonder says with the simple honesty that only children possess. "You're scared that magic might be real because then you'd have to admit that you've been living in a world that's smaller and sadder than it needs to be." The woman from the order turns toward Wonder, and for a moment her stern expression wavers. She sees not just a child, but something that shouldn't exist according to her understanding of reality, a being born from story and starlight, impossible but undeniably present. That moment of doubt is all the bridge between worlds needs. Every person in the theater who has ever wished for magic, ever hoped for wonder, ever dreamed of something more beautiful than the mundane world, their combined belief creates a surge of power that makes the impossible undeniably real. The theater transforms around them. The faded murals burst into full color and begin to move, telling stories of their own. The old organ begins to play music that resonates in dimensions beyond the audible. The stage becomes a window into Luminara itself, showing glimpses of crystal cities, singing forests, and dragons soaring through skies painted with aurora. Some of the officials flee, unable to process what they're seeing. Others stand transfixed, remembering childhood dreams they thought they'd forgotten. The police officers lower their badges, staring in wonder at a reality more beautiful than any they'd imagined. But the woman from the order doesn't flee. Instead, she steps forward, reaching toward the window into Luminara with a hand that trembles with suppressed longing. For just a moment, her gray suit shimmers and threatens to become something more colorful. "It's not real," she whispers, but her voice lacks conviction. It can't be real. Elena approaches her gently, the way a librarian might approach a child who's afraid of books. What if it is real? What if the world contains more mystery and beauty than you've allowed yourself to see? Would that be so terrible? The woman's armor of certainty cracks, and through the cracks you see glimpses of who she used to be. A child who once believed in fairy tales, a young woman who wrote poetry, a person who chose safety over wonder and has regretted it ever since. I used to dream," she admits, her voice barely audible, "but dreams don't pay bills. Dreams don't solve problems. Dreams just make reality harder to bear." Sarah steps forward, still holding her moonlight flute. "But dreams also make reality worth bearing. They show us possibilities we might work toward, beauty we might create, connections we might forge." She begins to play, not a complex melody, but something simple and pure, a lullaby that carries within it the memory of every bedtime story ever told with love. The music doesn't force anyone to believe, it simply reminds them of what they once knew, what they chose to forget. The woman from the order closes her eyes and listens, and as she does, her gray suit begins to change. Color seeps into the fabric like ink into water, first just hints of blue and green, then deeper hues, until she's clothed in robes that shimmer with all the colors she's denied herself for years. When she opens her eyes, they hold tears that catch the light from the window into Luminara, refracting it into tiny rainbows. "I remember," she whispers. "I remember wanting to write stories about places like this. I remember believing that anything was possible." The transformation of the Order's leader sends shockwaves through both realms. In Luminara, the crystal of making pulses with new possibilities, showing futures where the bridge between worlds grows stronger rather than weaker. In the mortal world, people who had forgotten how to dream begin to remember. But the victory comes with a warning from Pyrian, delivered through the window into Luminara. "This is only the beginning," the great dragon cautions. For every person who remembers how to see wonder, there will be others who cling to the safety of disbelief. The bridge is stronger now, but it's not yet strong enough to maintain itself without conscious effort. You understand what he means. The work of reconnecting the realms isn't a single battle but an ongoing campaign, requiring constant vigilance and creativity. Every story told with genuine belief, every piece of art that touches the impossible, every song that reaches beyond the mundane, all of these are acts of bridge building, connections that must be maintained and strengthened over time. The theater becomes a training ground for new bridge walkers. People come not just to witness wonder, but to learn how to create it themselves. Elena teaches storytelling techniques that make tales come alive. Marcus shows artists how to paint the emotions and possibilities that exist beyond the visible spectrum. Sarah instructs musicians in the art of playing the music that exists in the spaces between notes. But perhaps most importantly, you teach them to see the magic that already exists in their world, the extraordinary disguised as ordinary, the miraculous hiding in plain sight. A child's laughter that literally brightens a room, the way flowers turn towards sunlight with an intelligence that science can measure but not explain. The moments of synchronicity when the universe seems to conspire to bring beauty into existence. As months pass, the network of bridge walkers grows. They establish sanctuaries in other cities, art galleries where paintings show glimpses of other realms, music venues where every performance includes instruments that exist in multiple dimensions, libraries where books occasionally rewrite themselves to show readers exactly what they need to hear. The former leader of the Order of Absolute Reality becomes one of your most effective allies. Having experienced both the sterility of a world without wonder and the joy of reconnecting with magic, she brings a unique perspective to the work. She helps other former skeptics navigate the transition from disbelief to wonder, showing them that accepting magic doesn't mean abandoning logic. It means expanding their definition of what's possible. Children prove to be the most powerful allies of all. They adapt quickly to the returning magic, accepting dragons and unicorns with the same matter-of-fact enthusiasm they once reserved for video games and movies. They serve as unconscious bridges, their natural openness to wonder creating pathways that more cautious adults can follow. Schools begin to change as teachers trained in the Bridgewalker techniques introduce new methods of education. Math lessons include calculations involving impossible geometries. Science classes explore the physics of magic alongside traditional chemistry and biology. Literature students don't just read stories about other worlds, they visit them, experiencing tales from the inside out. The changes aren't always smooth. There are those who resist, who prefer the predictability of a world without mystery. Some governments try to regulate magic, demanding licenses for wonder workers and permits for reality alterations. Others attempt to weaponize the returning magic, seeking ways to use it for political or economic advantage. But magic, you learn, has its own intelligence. It flows toward those who approach it with love and wonder while eluding those who seek to control or exploit it. Attempts to bureaucratize magic result in forms that rearrange themselves into poetry. Weapons designed to channel magical energy transform into instruments that create music instead of destruction. The bridge between worlds grows stronger with each passing day, but it also grows more complex. What began as a simple connection between two realms evolves into a network linking multiple dimensions, each one offering its own unique forms of beauty and wonder. There's the realm of endless stories, where every tale ever told or imagined exists as a living landscape that visitors can explore. The dimension of pure music, where sounds take physical form and melodies become mountains. The world of living art, where paintings step out of their frames to dance with sculptures that change form with every movement. Each new connection brings its own challenges and opportunities. The inhabitants of these other realms have their own perspectives on magic, their own ways of bridging the gaps between possible and actual. Learning to work with them, to coordinate efforts across multiple dimensions, becomes an art form in itself. 5 years after your first journey to Luminara, you stand once again in the crystal chamber at the heart of Mount Luminar. But this time you're not alone. Hundreds of bridgewalkers from dozens of realms have gathered for the convergence, a celebration of how far the great work has progressed. The Crystal of Making no longer shows just 3 possible futures. Its facets now display an infinite array of possibilities, each one more beautiful than the last. Worlds where magic and technology work together to solve problems neither could address alone. Dimensions where art and science collaborate to create new forms of beauty. Realms where the distinction between dreaming and waking has become meaningless because both states are equally real and wonderful. Pyrrhian addresses the assembly, his star-filled scales now showing constellations from dozens of different skies. When we first chose to separate the realms, we thought we were preserving magic by isolating it. We learned instead that magic, like love, grows stronger when shared. the bridges you have built don't just connect worlds, they create new possibilities for what worlds can be. Elindra steps forward, their appearance now a perfect blend of elvish ethereality and human accessibility. The great work is not complete, it never will be complete, because wonder is not a destination but a journey. But the foundation is now strong enough to support whatever dreams the future may bring. As the ceremony concludes and the bridgewalkers disperse to their various realms and projects, you feel a deep sense of satisfaction mixed with anticipation. The world you return to is not the same one you left. It's richer, more colorful, more full of possibility. Magic hasn't replaced reality. It has revealed reality's true nature as something far more wonderful than anyone dared imagine. In the mortal world, children grow up expecting to encounter dragons, and sometimes they do. Artists paint with colors that don't exist in any earthly spectrum, and their works inspire viewers to see beyond the boundaries of the visible. Musicians compose symphonies that incorporate the songs of other realms, creating harmonies that touch the soul in ways that transcend ordinary understanding. The theater that serves as your headquarters has become more than a sanctuary. It's a training ground, a meeting place, a window between worlds that anyone can look through if they're willing to see. Every night brings new visitors, new stories, new connections between the possible and the actual. But perhaps most importantly, the work has taught you that wonder isn't something that exists outside ordinary life. It's the secret heart of life itself, waiting to be recognized and celebrated. Every sunset that paints the sky in impossible colors, every moment of perfect understanding between friends, every instance of love that overcomes fear, these are all forms of magic, bridges between what is and what could be. The bridgewalker's journey doesn't end, it evolves. Each day brings new opportunities to kindle wonder, to help others remember their capacity for astonishment, to build connections between realms that seemed forever separate. The crystal realm of Luminara may have been your first destination, but it was never your final one. For in the end, you've learned that every heart capable of wonder is itself a realm of infinite possibility, and every connection made between wondering hearts is a bridge that spans not just worlds but the very nature of existence itself. The story continues with every dreamer who dares to believe that reality is more magical than it appears, with every artist who paints the impossible, with every storyteller who makes the fantastic feel real. And in that continuation, in that endless flowering of wonder and connection, the true magic lives, not as escape from reality, but as reality's most beautiful and essential truth.